Welcome to the Renegade Politics Podcast, where you'll understand politics from an expert perspective. On the web at renegadepoliticspodcast.com.
One thing that I want to make certain to point out is that an event can be a trap. It can be a bad thing. It really usually doesn't help, but it can hurt also if you don't go. Now, in the 1800s, this is how people communicated. So we still do, it's a holdover, right? It's called a holdover from years past when someone would gather around and I'm going to tell you a story about who I am. And obviously we don't do that anymore or have the need to do that anymore. But like so many other things, it still goes on. I don't think in 150 years, if this country's still going by then, which I don't know, I have serious doubts, I don't know that you'll really have events like we have them now. I could be wrong, but people are so wrapped up in themselves. I don't see that going away. Enough of the social commentary, but what I said was true about that. It can be a trap. So you have to know when to go, when not to go. So that's obviously the first question, right? Do I go? Do I go to this event? First thing you have to ask yourself is, what is the expectation of your campaign? Obviously, the size of the campaign makes a big difference. If you're running for governor, you're probably not listening to this, but if you're running for governor, the answer is going to be very different than if you're running for a ward alderman position. If you're running for a position where you need about 200 votes, you better go to everything. That's the short answer. If you see a handful of people in their yard and you need 200 votes to win, you pop out of the car and you go to that handful of people in the yard and you start talking to them. I'm actually not really kidding. You have to look at it like that. If you need 3,000 or 4,000 votes or more, maybe not the most effective thing for many reasons that I can't get into in the 30 minutes we have here. But first thing you have to kind of think about is, who do you upset if you don't go to one of these things? Because it's usually not the voters. Usually the voters don't get upset if you don't go to an event. But the organizers are usually the ones who don't like you for not showing up. They have an expectation you're supposed to be there. And many of these things are just that. And I'm trying to really communicate. It's not really about your performance. It's about the fact that you were there. We've had candidates coming here to this fair for the past 37 years. That's what we do. You know what? Then go to the fair. And I'm speaking in a way because I hate going to events. And it's funny because I started off in this business. I spoke a lot, did a lot of speaking, went to a lot of events. And now I can't stand these events for the most part. I love the people at the events. I just don't like the events. So if you're anything like me, this is going to be more of a helpful podcast maybe. But I'm going to obviously talk about more than should you go, should you not go. And I will say that if you want to win, if you really want to win, you're going to have to go to all kinds of things you don't want to go to. And if that's not the case, and you're the kind of person that loves to go to events, I actually don't think you're going to win. And here's why. Because you have to manage your time. It's got to be split between different activities. And going to events cannot be the majority of what you do as a candidate. In fact, it's probably got to be somewhere, as far as the time requirement, somewhere at the bottom. It really does. Even if you're going to everything you should go to. That's how much time you need to put into this, but that's another discussion for another time. Also, most voters just don't go to events. Unless you can easily test this. You're invited to an event. There are going to be 150 people there. Big event, right? Decent size event. You need 80,000 votes to win. Is that a good use of your time? Well, how long would it take you to knock on 150 doors? Let's assume 75% of them are registered in your district. So how long would it take you to knock on those voters' doors? I don't know. Probably more efficient to speak at the event. But that's how you have to look at things. You have to look at it like a math problem. What are you getting out of these things? You just have to do that. And if people don't understand this, if they don't care, if they think that it doesn't matter, then those people probably don't care whether you win or not. And realistically, if you have somebody who they just want you to be there as someone to speak, and they don't really respect that you are trying to win a campaign, well, sorry, I'll come back when I win. That's a totally different thing. So I hope that made sense. You're not there to serve people who have nothing to do but put people on and fill their events. You're not there to serve event organizers, in other words. You see this a lot in small towns. And again, you got to be careful because you don't want to upset people. Obviously, there are the things you got to go to, but you can't just go to every single thing. So the best way, I think, to start that line of discussion is, what do you definitely not go to? What's an easy thing to say, no, you shouldn't be there? And I see this all the time, by the way, what I'm about to say. If you are, and it doesn't matter what your party is, but I was a Republican, or I'm still a Republican. If you're a Republican and you won the Republican nomination for something, guess where you don't go? Republican events. I mean, you can go to them, but if you go to the Republican whatever committee or Republican meeting every month, and then the election happens, you win it, you get the Republican nomination, you got 3 months to campaign, don't go to the next 3 meetings. What are you doing? People do this all the time. You already won. You move on. These people are going to vote for you. They're Republicans. And what's interesting is when you go to these, what actually happens at these events after you win the nomination, you get kind of stuck in arguments. I think actually, personally, you end up losing votes because what happens, you keep going and people just, oh yeah, it's Hank. Yeah, he's running for water commissioner. Hey, Hank, let me ask you a question. Last time you were here, I didn't think to ask this, but here's a new question for you. He might not agree with you on this. Maybe you're not going to lose votes probably, but be respectful of the party. But you don't have to go to every event. It doesn't mean sit at home and eat a thing of ice cream and watch TV. If it's going on, go. But you should be campaigning. You should be doing something else. That's what I'm trying to say. You should be out there reaching new people that you have not spoken in front of. How's that? It's kind of like sending your army to a town that you've already conquered. Does that make any sense? We already conquered this town. Send the army back and make sure it's still conquered. Yeah, it's conquered. You're driving your supplies through the town. There's a concept in sales, I don't know what they call it, but it's like overselling. When you get the yes and you keep selling. Okay, yeah, I'll buy it. Okay, and yeah, I'm glad you said that because here's 5 other reasons why you should buy. Okay, that doesn't make much sense, does it? So you got to be careful about this, but don't oversell your voters. Other events that candidates go to, pancake breakfasts, things like that. I would always go if you have a business that has like a meet and greet. Actually, anything that's called a meet and greet, you really should probably go. There's one thing I'll say, because just the title itself, if you skip the meet and greet, even if there's 3 people there, the fact that you skipped the meet and greet might be more harmful to you than actually not going to the meet and greet, if that makes any sense. Someone finds out, your opponent finds out, doesn't even go to the meet and greet. This guy obviously doesn't care. Now, yeah, you could say, well, I was busy, I was at this thing, but the pancake breakfast, the meet and greets, find out who puts it on, have a conversation with them, tell them that I would just do, I know you don't want to do this, but find out who organizes the pancake breakfast, who organizes the meet and greet. Hi, Larry, I understand you're organizing the meet and greet. Oh, fantastic, yeah, I'm running for Congress. Here's the thing. I want to come to your event. I have a lot going on. Obviously, I'm campaigning. He's going to understand that. How long is it? Okay, well, what time will be speaking? Find out these things. Find out whether or not you're going to be speaking, what time you're going to be speaking. Find out the details. If you don't know the details or you can't ask those questions, ask people who've already been to it. And if you can't go or you don't want to go or you got something else going on, send someone else there for you. Just have someone there with some material so that at least you had a person, a volunteer or someone with a campaign there. Any kind of a special event, like a gun event or, a race relation event or something that's a specialty. Let's get rid of this tax or let's raise the minimum wage or something like that. Even things you don't really entirely agree with or you don't agree with at all. I would say go. I guess the pattern that I'm sort of hearing myself say, which I didn't expect to make this observation when I started this, but I almost feel like the more you feel like you don't belong there, the more you should be there. Because you'd be surprised how many, and you got to think about it like a voter. You'd be surprised how many people show up at these events and they want to raise the minimum wage. And they're there, yeah, I'm going to raise the minimum wage. You show up, right? They're there because they are a one-issue person, maybe. But they're still voting for all these. They're still going to vote. So they want to, just bear with me on the minimum wage. How about let's not tax widgets committee? How's that? So we don't get too far off on the minimum. Let's not tax widgets. It's ridiculous. We got to keep widgets free. So you go to this event and you kind of feel like widgets should be taxed, right? So you go to the event and you're talking to people and you go up and you say, hey, you know what, guys? I actually believe widgets should be taxed. I wanted to come here, and you're going to get boos. Boo, this guy sucks. And you don't argue. You're there because as a representative of people, we made a decision in this country. We're going to appoint people, or elect people, appoint people through election to make decisions for us as a representative. We're not going to micromanage them. We're going to elect them to make decisions for us. So that's what you're doing. You're already doing the job. You show up. This is what you'll do if you get elected, by the way, and you don't agree. You show up. You know, I'm here because I'm running for Congress. I think we should tax widgets. I'm open to discussion about not taxing widgets, but I didn't want everyone here to think that I didn't care enough to show up because I care enough to be here, to listen to you, to get some material for why you feel this way, to understand your position so that when I'm elected, you'll at least have a person that you can speak with on this issue who is at least sympathetic to how you feel. I may not agree with you on everything. I'm not going to agree with you on everything. Maybe not even taxing widgets. But I'm here and I care. I care about the issue. I care about both sides. I really do. And you know what? You speak to 100 people at the Let's Not Tax Widgets, I'll bet you picked up a couple votes. And I'll bet you had more conversations about your appearance than anyone else there. Hey, I went to this thing. I went to this thing, don't tax widgets thing, because I don't think you're talking to your neighbor now. Hey, neighbor, I went to this don't tax widgets event. Oh, I think we should tax widgets. Whatever. Yeah, well, I figured you'd say that. So I was there, and this guy was running for Congress, Jim Jones, and he was there. He says he wants to tax. Really? Who's this guy, Jim Jones? Huh. Yeah, he showed up and said, let's tax widgets. It was crazy. I kind of like the guy. I don't know. It takes a lot of courage to do that. People in America want courage right now. Not a lot of courage out there. So if you don't agree, you have a really great opportunity to show up and make more of a splash than if you do agree, in my opinion. I know it sounds a little weird, but the whole thing's a little weird, running for office, right? I'll tell you a quick story about me. I was running for something, and it was I'm trying to not get in my personal life. I don't say my name on here. It was a union event, and I have a very complicated relationship with unions, and I sort of did that. I went there, and they were expecting to kind of blast me or whatever. I think they thought I was going to go there and say, I hate the unions. You guys are all a bunch of jerks. And I opened by saying, my first political experience was actually organizing with a union. And here's what happened. And here's what I learned. And I had a friend out in the audience, and he said that everyone was stunned. They were just like, is this true? Is this true? Like I made that up. It is true, by the way. I just spoke from the heart. I just did. Now, I didn't win. I did okay. But I just think that being genuine, telling a story, trying to connect with the audience, and remember, some of these people have wives and husbands in the audience and friends they drug there, and maybe they don't even care about the issue. They don't even care. Talking to them. You're showing up. You're being yourself. It takes a lot of courage to go and make a connection with people that you don't agree with on their face. So I'll drop that because I've beaten that to death. What's another event that you have to go to? Debate. Too many can be bad. I've never heard of a debate be the reason someone lost or won, unless you're talking about presidential debates. And sometimes statewide, usually Senate for some reason. I think this is just our society marching on. I really do. I think that things are just, now the presidential debate, I feel like the presidential debate is like a door knock for the presidential candidates because you can't knock doors, so that's their way of connecting. I'm going to show up on TV, and I'm going to be candidate, I'm going to stand there, and I'm going to wander up and down the stage. Hi there, how you doing? I'm running for president, and do that fake kind of stupid wave that they do. That's just what they do. So it's like door knocking. But remember, if you're in a campaign that's a smaller, campaign running for smaller than president, you're not running for president, I'd say easily 9 out of 10 people who go to these debates easily are with a campaign or they're on some kind of political staff. And I am going to say close to 10 out of 10 people who show up at these debates, and I know a lot of people are going to disagree with me on this, but I don't care. I'm going to say it anyway. I think 95 out of 100 people that show up at debates already know who they're going to vote for. They're there to either cheer or to meet you. Or here's what you get a lot of, and be careful with this. There are a lot of people who show up at a debate because they have one issue that's important to them. And they just want to ask you a question about that one issue, look you in the eyes, and that's what they do. And you have to be prepared for that. You get a lot of marijuana people. Hey, I just want to know how you feel about marijuana. You will get that at these events. Sometimes abortion. It just depends on what it is and what's big and where you are. So a debate, you got to go to the debates, because if you don't go to the debate, unless you have a good reason, you're going to look like a jerk. But they are kind of pointless. And then what do? They go on radio. No one listens to these on radio. Trust me. No one. TV, if it's cable access, no one. Even if it's not cable access, very close to no one is actually watching these things. And I know some people will think, well, there's older people that will listen to these. They do. I don't know if they're just bored and they're just watching, or they're just entertainment. I don't know. Or maybe I'm wrong. But I really don't. I've never heard anyone talk about a debate. Once I was at a debate that was, and I'm sure there's a lot of these at a senior center, go to those. Yeah, you got to go to those. And I think that, remember, when it's a debate, that's also kind of they'll have a debate at a senior center because it's really a meet and greet disguised as a debate. Or is it a debate disguised as a meet and greet? I don't know which. Meet and greets always go to, debates, If it's you and 2 other people on a radio station, you probably should go, because you'll piss off the radio station if you don't. But you get what I'm saying here. A debate can be a bad thing because it's a way to box you into things, and they can be unfair. The classic ask a question, they go, I'm not going to answer that question, but I'm going to use my time to answer it a different way. People do that all the time. So I will do a special podcast on debates. This is not the time or the place. I will tell a quick story about something happened to me. This is true. People must think I'm completely nuts with these, or I'm making this up. I'm not making any of this up. This is my life. I am convinced that there was going to be an ambush at a debate I was going to. It was just a bad situation. It was an NPR radio station. I am convinced they were going to do something where I would look like an imbecile somehow, or someone would be screaming in my face and the picture would be taken, and that would be the picture that would be associated with me for the rest of my life. Someone screaming in my face and pointing at me, and I'm staying there, looking stupid. Don't let yourself get into that. So I tried to make lemons out of lemonade, and it worked. Here's what I did. I didn't go to the debate. I sent out a press release explaining why. The television news story led with the press release. They read my words, but the opening, I know I've told the story on this podcast before. They opened the story on the debate with me. Actually, it was one candidate didn't show up. Here's why. And then after talking about me for 3 minutes, oh, and by the way, here's what happened at the debate. Everyone's, in the kitchen getting, second helping of tacos or whatever when they're actually showing them. So sometimes it helps because if you lead, that's what you want. People pay attention to the lead and then they lose interest after about 32 seconds in a news story. So if you're not going to show up at the debate, have a reason for it. And that's what I did. I won't tell you my reason, but there you go. If it's a really controversial race, this is more likely to happen. Obviously, if you're running for something dumb, like, just insulted half the people listening, something dumb like a dog catcher or something. Yeah, no one's going to really care. I'm talking about like a really intense kind of we hate this guy movement or whatever. It seems to be the case with everything nowadays. But if you're running for just some kind of boring thing, a school board, and you're not really all that controversial, which, you're probably not going to win unless you're already there, in my opinion. But whatever, this may not pertain to you. So obviously, don't be worried about someone setting you up if it's not something that's already been a concern, okay? There's my disclaimer, if you will. And, of course, a lot of these, not really a debate, but be careful with the fringe events. Do I tell this story? I once went to an event, and there were these people that were telling me this, so you got to read this book on Agenda 21. Now, I'm not saying anything pro or against Agenda 21, but they're telling me, well, you need to learn about this. If you don't know about this, you can't possibly run for office. And he's telling me this stuff, and I'm just, yep, that's what communists do. Yep, that's communism. Okay, yep, you're describing fascism. Yep, okay. I mean, Agenda 21, look, I didn't read the book. I read about 20 pages, and every sentence, it was just, okay, you could just take whatever they were saying about this Agenda 21 thing and plug in communist or fascist. It's the same thing. I heard this in a sermon once. They said bank tellers don't have to know and study the ways to counterfeit money because they handle money so much, they handle the real thing so much that they're so familiar with real money that when they're confronted with a counterfeit dollar bill, they know it. And that's how I feel about that. Don't worry about every possible thing that is bad out there. You'll never promote yourself. Promote yourself, what you're going to do, and try to stick to that as much as you can. So I'm sorry I just insulted someone, but look, I'm with you. I get it. I'm anti that stuff, but come on. Read some 300-page book to tell me that communism or fascism is bad. I already know that. Handling questions at events is a very specific thing you have to be careful with. There are two kinds of this. There's questions while you're speaking, and there's questions when you're walking around at an event, right? And remember, you're there to speak. You're not there to answer questions. Unless it's a Q&A, then you're there to answer questions. And you really can't dodge questions, and you shouldn't. But you should have kind of a plan to how to make it limited and just be aware that someone's going to ask you some crazy thing. So you're speaking at the end, I'll take a couple questions. Or will you take a couple questions? Sure. See, I love these things. But if you weren't a talk show host for 2 years, you probably, don't love them like I do. Don't ramble when answering them, first of all. Everyone does this. Blah, 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 blah. Don't want to hear it. And you don't think you're rambling, do you? You are rambling. I'm telling you, you are. You don't know how to answer, try to come close and move on. Hey, can I ask you how you feel about H.R. 703? What is that? That's the bill that would limit the right of people to put a sticky thing in their gun. Yeah, I'll tell you, that's just how I feel about gun control in general. I just think that it's a slippery slope, and the more we try to monkey with people's freedoms, the worse we are. There you go. See what I did? I didn't answer the question because I have no idea what that bill is. I have no idea what that sticky thing is. I don't care. I'm going to just blow that up, move that up to the next level higher up, and explain gun control. You can do that with anything. Hey, I want to know how you feel about this new tax on widgets. Yeah, widgets. I'm not really sure what that is, but I'll tell you how I feel about new taxes. If we don't need the tax now, I think before we have a new tax, we have to figure out why we need a new tax. What's the problem that forces us as a government to say, we need more of your money? I think that question has to be answered. There you go. See how I did that? It's almost like Jerry Seinfeld how I answered that. But that's how you do it. You have to just, you're not going to flow maybe that easily. And I'm just making this up on the fly, too. I'm not writing that down. So just try to come close and then move on. Okay, next question. Okay, great. Just move on, don't it? Because the one guy, don't keep answering the one guy's question. Just say, maybe there's other people here. Can we just, thank you. Sorry about that. Can we talk after? That's a good one. Hey, can I get with you after to talk about that? You can always do that. Questions while you're walking around. It's similar. You got to know when and how to make a break. You cannot stand with one person for 35 minutes. You cannot stand with one person for 35 minutes. I could say that for the next 5 minutes of this podcast, and it wouldn't be enough. You cannot stand there with one person. You've got to find a way to make a break. Be honest, be brief, and exit with a handshake. Hey, it was great talking to you, Bill. Hand out. He shakes your hand. I'm just going to move along the room. Stay in touch, okay? Here's my card. See you later, buddy. Don't stand there and talk to this guy for 20. First of all, you look weird. Second of all, you're not doing anything. You might not even have his vote. You're there for a job. Your job is to meet voters and to convince them that you're the right choice. Remember that. Move around the room. Handling media at events. This can be kind of tricky. Remember, the media can really harm you. So be on there. If they want you now for 5 minutes in the hallway, you go to the hallway for 5 minutes. One time I went to an event. A guy snuck up to me. Hey, can I talk to you afterwards? Hand me his business card from TV, whatever. And he said, sorry about that. He said, hey, afterwards, can I just have you in the hallway for 3 minutes, talk about this? Yeah, great. See, that's a top 10 media market. You might not be in that. So if they show up, probably going to be kind of amateurish. Just do whatever. Don't piss them off. They are on a deadline, and do what they need. Ask how long, what you want to talk about, where you want to do it, and there you go. Here's a couple things that you have to do at every event. I'm going to end on this. So here are the things you got to do at every event. Number 1, make it a brief appearance. Briefer the better. Briefest the better. Why? Because you are on a mission, remember? Apologize for other events, things going on, whatever. People who support you want you to win more than hanging out with you all evening, I hope. So make it a brief opinion. Make your opinion brief and make your appearance brief. Number 2, send out a media advisory. Every time you go to something with more than 3 people at it, send out a media advisory. And by the way, coffees are really a great thing. I don't know if it's at an event. Try to get these coffees. I mean, I even heard about this since Clinton, but boy, they are really a good thing. Have someone try to invite over their circle of friends. There are 10 people, the 10 moms that the mom knows or whatever, and just go to speak to those 10 moms. But anyway, that's another thing. Send out a media. Maybe don't do a media advisory for the coffees, right? Hey, we're going to have coffee with 10 people in this person's house. Or maybe they'll love it because the media shows up. Who knows? Send out a media advisory. Candidate's going to be here at 7 o'clock p.m. Just helps them know you're out there campaigning. Number 3, this is kind of silly, but it's important. Eating. You don't want to get sick. You're shaking a lot of hands, so here's a tip. This is a very valuable tip I'm going to give you. Eat with your left hand. Shake hands with your right hand. There you go. You like that? I know that sounds goofy, but boy, that probably saved me from a lot of being sick. Saw Ted Cruz a couple times when he came out to my town, and he was sick. He seemed a little off. I didn't know he was sick, but probably from shaking hands and eating with his right hand. So hopefully, if you're listening, Ted, don't do that again. Sit by the door. It's not to be rude. It's to get out so you don't make it, don't sit in front and then say, oh, I got to go. Because remember, you got to be brief. Stand up and make a big, giant production about leaving. Hey, see you later, candidate. You should just slip out the back door. Number 5, if you can, shake every hand you see. I just want to shake your hand, say, hi, how you doing? My name's Jim Jones. I'm running for Congress. By the way, my name is not Jim Jones. Just in case you were wondering. Shake every hand you can. It's a personal contact. Don't go it alone. Don't go alone. The pros don't do it. Don't do it. Unless you're that kind of personality type that you can just hang out by yourself and you're totally comfortable. It ain't me. But be comfortable at these events. So don't do it alone. And last thing, if you're speaking, come late. And if you're not, come early. If you're speaking at an event, come late so you can get in, speak. Actually, let them know you're going to be there late, by the way. Come late. Do your speaking and get the hell out of there and go and do other campaign stuff. I'm not saying sit at home and hang out, but you should be campaigning as much as possible. If you're not, come early, work the room, and get out of there. Speaking of which, my time is up here. Renegade Politics Podcast at gmail.com.